Hey friends, glad to be back today. And in studio today is joining me a good friend of mine, Nicole. She's also a doctor, and she's also overcome and dealt with some major health issues in her life. Actually, dealing with these specific health issues led her into medicine and led her to be a doctor. Nicole, I'm so glad to have you in the studio.
I'm always happy to see you, Ashley.
I'm always happy to see you. And ever since we met, we had an immediate connection. And it was interesting because, you know, when I meet doctors, usually doctors got in the profession because they always wanted to be a doctor, or they got in the profession because mom or dad was a doctor or grandfather was a doctor. Mm-hmm. But your story is quite a bit different. And so it's interesting that your story is based on dealing with your own health issues, and that inspired you to help other people. Tell us about what happened back when you were actually figure skating and
speed skating.
Speed skating.
Yes.
Wow. And you were going out for the Olympics.
Yes, I was fairly young, in my early 20s. And I had taken up skating a little later in life, because in your 20s as an athlete, you could be considered old in those days. So I was gaining my Olympic sponsorship. I wanted to compete speed skating. I was a big rollerblader at the time, and so I joined a team of rollerbladers, and then it just progressed from there. I just liked it. It was good. I liked being on skates. It all worked. And it was something I'd never considered in my life, but just kind of fell into. And, you know, being in your 20s, it's like the world is your oyster. You think that you are absolutely invincible. And when something traumatic happens, it can really set you back. And at a young age, look, you don't have that much life experience. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was exercising, competing, wanting to follow that as a quasi-career. And I woke up one day. I was living in Michigan. I'd been training for a long time, and I didn't feel good, and my eye hurt. Very rare, like weird, odd symptoms. Just went to my primary care doc, and he said, "Oh, you have Bell's palsy." And I'm like, "What's Bell's palsy? What is that?" And if you don't know what that is paralysis on one side of your face, where it looks like basically you've had a stroke. The mouth is droopy, the eye gets stuck open, and it's a paralyzed state, but it's just temporary, and it's caused by a virus. And generally, easy treatment, so to speak, some steroids, and generally clears up. They really don't know what causes it other than it's a virus. I don't know, they don't know where you get it from. And so I went through that about 10 days, and as soon as I took the last dose of my medication, I ended up with lockjaw. So it progressed from this weird paralysis to lockjaw, where I did drink food through a straw for almost 3 years.
Oh my God.
And the solution to that was, of course, with traditional medicine, break the jaw, reset it, make it work. Well, I didn't opt for that. And needless to say, I was physically active, so all of a sudden my physical activity was starting to be affected. And I did what I was told, what my doctor told me, did the round of medication, had the lockjaw, and then from that point on, my health in general just began to decline. My body started to hurt, my joints started to swell, I slept for 8-10 hours a day, chronic fatigue, really puzzling. Went to all kinds of doctors and specialists, was diagnosed with various diseases, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, rheumatoid arthritis. And if any of you don't know about these diseases, the treatments can be really intense. There are a lot of side effects, and a lot of them are based on chemotherapy type drugs. So within all of that time, and just know we're talking about a 6-year period here, I ended up losing all my hair from the medications, and the therapies were actually causing more harm than good. I wasn't getting better. And so that was about 1992. And in about 1997, I finally ended up at an infectious disease specialist, and I was ultimately diagnosed with Lyme disease. And so I was in a wheelchair at that time. I had totally lost my place, any chance of Olympic anything. I had a visiting nurse coming to the house twice a day. I was really ill.
Wow.
And so, okay, great. We finally find out what's going on after many misdiagnoses. But understand, folks, that Lyme disease at that time was really new. It didn't really have a name. In the years prior to the diagnosis, it was just being uncovered. It was just arriving on the scene. So, to make a long story shorter, I ended up with an infectious disease specialist. The traditional treatment was IV antibiotics. They implanted a port into my heart, and I had a pump that pumped antibiotics into my body 24/7. It had a timer. It was on. I refilled it when it was empty. And that was my life.
Wow.
And it was terrible. It was really, because I had gone from being this healthy, active, aspiring woman to now being a disabled invalid, basically, not even able to take care of myself. And so the antibiotic treatment standard is anywhere from 3 months to a year. And I was at about 7 months with the treatment, and they decided, we can't do anything else. Your kidneys are distressed, they're failing, they're overloaded. Your liver is showing serious signs of distress. And basically, I was told that I had 8 months to live and that I should get my affairs in order. By this time next year, I wouldn't be alive. And so it really obviously affected me at a very deep level. And because of your background, I know that you understand when I say the trauma that it caused, emotionally. It literally just, it was havoc. My life, all of a sudden, I didn't know who I was or what was happening. And so that whole series of events, being told I was going to die, and because of my tenaciousness, you might say, and being from the East Coast, I just I had an attitude at that point, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think you're right. That was my attitude. Now, a lot of people wouldn't go there. Can't tell you why I went there. It's an intuitive thing. It was just something within my being, and I was like, this is not right. And so I started my own search. And because traditional medicine couldn't help me, I ended up going into the complementary or alternative side of medicine. That's what it was called at that time. Now it's called functional or integrative, but it was different at that time. And basically that world was just all quacks. That's how it was back then. We're talking, we're before 2000, okay? So that world changed my entire life. That world was amazing. Because Lyme disease, as you may or may not know, really doesn't have a cure. Once you contract Lyme disease, it's really tricky. It's tricky to treat, it's tricky to live with, and you can't give up. Because some of the treatments themselves and what you go through, if you don't push through, you won't make it. So what ended up happening through all that was I did find a physician who was from another country, a Russian doctor, who knew how to treat me on this natural side of things in a very underground clinic. And I was treated with nutritional therapies. Nutrition. So some of you might say, what? Yes, that is true. That is the truth. That is what the cure was, but it was not just a pill. It was a series of therapies in progression in a certain order that led to healing. And some of those therapies, we would sit in clinic in a group, and there were people from all over the world, all kinds of autoimmune issues. So when we talk about autoimmune cancer, specifically, a lot of that, and like aggressive cancers, pancreatic cancer, things at that time that there was not any kind of hope for.
Wow. So
the sickest of the sick. And it was kind of like the medical community didn't know what to do with all of us, and so we kind of were dismissed.
Right.
There was nothing left. So if you had something left within you, you looked. And we all ended up together. And we would sit with these nutritional IV drips for hours in the clinic. So we would all talk, and the doctor would sit and talk with us. And this doctor he was just an amazing gentleman. He was an older man. He was very experienced with clinical nutrition, IV nutrition, oral nutrition, food therapy. Things that they do in Europe and other countries that we at the time were not doing. It was totally considered voodoo. But what I can tell you, because I am sitting here, it worked. And what happened with that was it actually led me on a path to want to become a naturopathic physician.
Wow.
So that's how I actually got to this place. And I get a lot of questions about Lyme disease. And of course, because that's what I had, I did a lot of study on that. And people started to come to me once I started to practice.
Nice.
And so I really, really learned a lot about the disease, the therapy, and what it takes to survive. It changed my life.
You know, for anybody out there watching right now, and maybe you have Lyme disease, been diagnosed with it, a family member, a friend, you know, this is really scary stuff. I've seen personally friends of mine that have gone through hell and back, unable to work,
Yes.
unable to hold down a job, unable to really deal with day-to-day life.
Yes. Relationships are difficult.
Exactly.
Just the daily tasks of living is hard.
I have a friend of mine that literally just getting out of bed and moving around
Painful.
is painful. So, okay, so you went through a lot of different processes, procedures. Obviously, you were picked and prodded and tested and misdiagnosed and all that stuff. And finally, you get the diagnosis, and then you begin this nutritional type. This is one of the bases of what you did. What would you, I guess, what would you tell the folks out there? What are some of the things they can do if they've been diagnosed with it? What can they start? Because if they're stuck in bed and they're not getting the help they need or the right help they need, because we can all get help, but if it's not the right help, what is it doing for us? You know what I mean? Where are we at? And I've been there before where I had a condition that nobody understood and misdiagnosed and going through experimental surgeries and almost dying on the operating table twice. So I get it. So what do you advise in this situation? If someone's sitting here watching, you know, our video right now and saying, man, I'm going through this. What can I do? Because I want more for my life than just laying in this bed.
Well, I think it's important, and I'll give you some strategies, some very simple things, but it's important to understand the disease itself and how tricky it is. And so that is part of the problem, and what I will encourage you to do is to not give up. And you need to really look within yourself and listen to what you're being told and really feel if it resonates with you, because different therapies are for different people. The bacteria, because it is a Lyme bacteria, it's a spirochete, and what that means is that it morphs into different beings. It has an ability to hide itself and disguise itself. So it's the master impersonator, so to speak, of the cells, and it hides behind these protein films. And so that's one of the things that makes it really hard to detect. And it's important for people to understand regarding Lyme disease that even the tests that we have now, they're only, it's a 50-50 shot. 50% positive, 50% negative, and whatever you get for a result, that's what you get stuck with. So you could really have the disease and have a negative, right? You could not have the disease and have a positive and be mistreated that way. So it goes both ways. So it's really important that each individual pays attention to what they're hearing and what they're feeling internally, because it has to really resonate with you, whoever's going to take care of you, right? No matter what therapy it is.
Yeah,
so,
and they recently just said that the Lyme disease has been an increase in cases in Lyme disease across the country.
Yes, because before it was isolated to certain areas.
Yeah.
Yes, so it was isolated to the East Coast, Lyme, Connecticut, that's how it got its name, that's where it was first discovered.
They're saying it's actually even in the state of Texas now.
I believe it. Because I don't believe that how the disease came about in society is really true or isolated. So that's a whole other story. There are books on that. It has to do with conspiracy theory. Some people are conspiracy theorists, some people are not.
Okay.
But when you really track down and sort through the research, it's spreading. And one of the things that does happen now is they say that the disease itself becomes part of you. It becomes part of your genetic material that you pass on.
Whoa.
And so that in itself is really scary.
Whoa.
And that's something that people who have Lyme, they might be told that, they might not. I think it's something that people should, again, be aware of.
So if a woman has Lyme disease, if she gets pregnant, she can pass that on to her unborn child?
That is what is said in the research. Yes.
Wow.
Now, I do have a child. I don't know if he has Lyme disease. He's been tested a couple times.
Okay.
But he definitely does have the other conditions that are hereditary, like the hypothyroidism.
Okay.
And other conditions like that. My belief is that those things were sparked from the Lyme disease.
Wow.
So I think from a genetic, a very deep level, DNA processing and, transcription of DNA within our bodies, it's really in there. It's not easy to eradicate. And so you want to bring it up to the surface and then eradicate it. And that's what people miss. They just think, oh, you have an active Lyme, I'll give you some antibiotics for 10 days, you'll be fine. But that's not true. That's not true. It doesn't go away like that.
So it's a lifetime thing.
It is. It is. And you will go through phases of, when I say remission, you'll feel great. Then there'll be a trigger. It will become active. Remember, I mentioned a couple times that it acts like a parasite. That's important because parasites they're tricky and they're sneaky and they hide and they morph. And so they also work on moon cycles, which animals have a lot of parasites.
Yeah.
And we are mammals. And so we don't think we have them, but we do. And we all function, in society in, when I say a safe environment, what we can safely. But in dealing with this stuff, it's debilitating. So just to start off, and the question you did ask me was, hey, what can these people do? So, of course, rest is important. That might sound silly, but you have to rest a lot because it's taking its toll. And the other thing that at-home things has to do with the lymphatic system, which a lot of people don't know about. Epsom salt baths, mineral salt baths, Dead Sea salts, and there's also a very specific protocol for the bathing. Temperature of the water, there's all these little nuances that help it to work in the right way, but you have to do it just like that in those steps to get a result. And so there are some things you can do at home, take care of yourself, but a lot of the things that you need to do are long-term.
Okay.
You need guidance. You need to work with somebody. It's not something that you can manage and just fix on your own.
Do you know what some of those triggers are to Lyme disease? Like, so everything's going well, you're doing good, you're feeling good, and then all of a sudden this trigger happens. Is there any, specific triggers that you can think of?
For when you're feeling good and then it acts up? So, yes, there are actually. Stress, definitely, which, look, we all have an unbelievable amount of stress now, especially because we're always on call. People can reach us 24/7 because of our cell phones, right? We all work 24/7. Years ago, do you remember when the phone hung on the wall? Like when you left the house, you left the house. You couldn't talk to anyone, right? How did we do that? Because I think about that, leaving my phone somewhere, I'm like, oh my, right? There's anxiety over leaving my phone, right? But the truth is that's like a low-level stressor all the time. You never shut off. And so what that means is that the adrenal glands are always running, which your adrenal glands fight or flight response. That obviously when your body is ill, fight is on. Let's go, right? But that's only supposed to come on board in an emergency.
Right.
Like you're jumping out of the way of a speeding car. A dinosaur is chasing you. That's, fight or flight. Like that is what that's about.
Right.
But nowadays, that's on all the time. So when the adrenals are in that flight and fight mode always, the body can't heal. So the disease, any disease state, will progress. You can't stop it. So if you're not really cognizant and aware of that, that alone will take you down. So I'll encourage you to clean up your environment, clean up your diet. You have to learn to relax, and that's going to be different for everyone, because for some people, working is relaxing. For some people, working out is relaxing. So you have to really be in tune with who you are and use those things that you really enjoy that you like to do as part of your therapy. So movement's key. And one of the biggest things with Lyme disease is you're in pain all the time. Most people don't want to move. And that is the one thing I will tell you, even if you just walk around your house, get out of bed and move a little, because that's what gets everything going. So stress would be the first thing. And then after that, it can be a myriad of things. Of course, the diet, anything that's going to, and again, it does go back to stress, internally stress you out, foods, anything that causes inflammation, which we know a lot of our foods do, that will totally trigger it. Physically overtaxing your body.
Okay.
Because think about blood flow. Things are moving, circulation. Well, the Lyme is traveling around your body. It's not related to one organ. That's also one of the issues.
Okay.
So there's a threshold for every individual, and when it comes to exercise and movement, regardless if you're super healthy or you're super sick, there is a threshold for each individual, and only you could tell me what that is for you.
Wow.
By moving.
Right.
Right? But when we talk about, what should I, gentle things, gentle movement, like I said, getting up and walk around the house, going outside and walking around your house. People think that's crazy, but when you've been bedridden, that's like a big deal. It really is.
It's huge.
Because you need to start gaining back some momentum and some muscle. Because really it can be a wasting situation for a lot of people.
Is there anything, so I know that we're going to talk in some upcoming videos on maybe even some techniques and some things that we can do. What is one of those big things that you can do? You might have to go to a physician for or a healthcare provider, but what are some of those things that we can talk about a little bit right now and then maybe do an extra video on that in the future?
Well, for me, what I discovered was I was doing a lot of therapies, but I still wasn't getting well. And what was discovered was my body was impaired in its level of natural detoxification.
Oh.
Those metabolic pathways were damaged and weren't working properly. And so those things can be addressed through nutrition, but when I talk about movement, movement is key. And the reason why I'm stressing on that is because the lymphatic system, which is a system which I know you know a lot about,
right?
It's not a system that a lot of people know about. If you go to a European doctor, they know all about it because they talk about it in standard of care and their medicine there. They bring it into your health. It's part of your health. And so all of the waste, dead cells, hormones that are used up or are not going to be used, toxins that the body wants to get rid of, byproducts of metabolism, all of that goes into your lymphatic system. And so how do we care for and move our lymphatic system? It's one of the key treatments with Lyme disease. So getting your lymphatic system moving regularly and knowing how to do that is super important. So lymphatic massage is key, but not just physical massage. What I ended up doing was based on another patient who sat with me in IV clinic, and this young woman was begging me to go with her. She also had Lyme disease. Oh. And she said, Nicole, I was living in Boston at the time, that's where I'm from. She said, I drive up to Vermont every Saturday. Now, it's a 4-hour ride, one way. And she said, I get this treatment. It's called, it's a lymphatic therapy treatment, but the machine that's used is called a light beam generator, and it's a laser. And it's 2 different types of technologies combined. It's frequency and light. And what it does is it moves the lymphatic system for drainage without a person physically having to move their body or the lymphatic system. So your lymphatic system only moves when you move. It doesn't have a pump. It's not part of your circulation. It moves on smooth, like it's on smooth muscle movement. So every time you move, it's kind of like a snake, right? That's how it moves. It flows and it's gentle. But that system, that lymphatic system, is your waste system internally, as well as the subway for your hormones internally, because that's really what it does. It's moving all those things around, and you want it to be healthy. We've all heard about different kinds of lymphatic cancers, and when things get into your lymph system, right, boy, it spreads fast because your whole body is encased in lymphatic vessels.
Right.
And so when we treat, we want to make sure that we can detoxify now. The liver, kidneys also come into play. Everything, again, has to be evaluated. But you can detox your liver and kidneys as much as you want if your lymphatic system is not working or if it's impaired. All of that toxic material that you're liberating is going to get reabsorbed.
Wow.
And this is where people become sicker and sicker. Because think about it now, it's like drinking a bottle of toxins. It's not going anywhere, it's just recirculating in your body.
Exactly.
So, and one of the things that I did find is that this specific therapy was key. It was a key therapy for my recovery and for my healing. And really it was, I went to school so that I could minister that therapy, that specific therapy. That's all I wanted to do. And that just blossomed in to a whole other life for me.
And what's the name of the machine again?
It's called a light beam generator.
Okay, so there you go. So I hope that this video has helped begin the enlightenment process on Lyme disease and understanding that I brought somebody to the table who is gone through it, been through it, living it, educated themselves, become a doctor, done this because of this, and wants to help other people. So the next video that you'll see here in the immediate future will be us discussing this actual process of lymphatic massage with the light beam generator, and you'll actually see some of it being demonstrated and what it actually does. It's going to be very powerful, and it's going to be some really informative information for you. If you know anybody that's dealing with Lyme disease, if you have Lyme disease yourself, or you're dealing with some other issues as well, this is also going to help that too.
Yes, absolutely. Any autoimmune condition.
This is awesome. So look for that next video here. It'll be up as soon as possible. And in the meantime, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Share this with your friends, your relatives, your loved ones, anybody that's dealing with this situation, because honestly, when you don't know everything and you're scared and you feel like you're in the dark, you need answers, less questions, and that's what this video is for, and that's what this entire channel is for. If you'd like to leave a comment about maybe overcoming disease or dealing with a disease or dealing with Lyme disease or have some questions, please put those in the comment section below, and either myself or Dr. T can answer those too. In the meantime, no matter what you're going through, no matter what stress or strain that you're dealing with, it might seem overwhelming, but as long as you really work toward it and being mindful and being the best you can every day and just working to be better than you were yesterday, you'll always be living your true life. Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.